So Bertie was born back in 1952 and he's seen it all with farming. He's seen the whole thing. He's been around in the 60s growing up farming, the 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up to today. So today we're going to talk about what it was like farming in the 1960s. So in every day, what is different between today and farming in the 60s?
It was a slower pace of life than most traditional type of farming, inherited from our fathers and grandfathers, way of doing things. Though home industry sort of farming, growing your oats and your potatoes and vegetables and all. You're self-sufficient, you never went to the shop, very seldom.
And would you say that it was it a better quality of life for a farmer back then?
There's more time to talk to your neighbours and more relaxed about things. There wasn't such a rush of greed and rush. There's more going about your leisurely pace. If you stopped and met someone on the road, you had a good long chat and heard all the news.
And nowadays, would you do that between farmers?
Oh, I haven't time to say hello to you now anymore. It's rush all the time.
Yeah, but you're still more traditional in that way. You would still sometimes talk to the neighbour farmers, wouldn't you? And the ones you know.
Well, we still have a wee bit of instinct in me.
Yeah, you haven't.
I'm not like the modern youth nowadays, wouldn't even see you. They're not big a hurry.
Yeah, it's crazy. And as for the machines, what machines or what way of doing things was actually used? What techniques was used back in the 60s?
It was just the old small tractor and the two-stroke plough and the harrow, and just the old traditional way of doing things. Instead of the horse doing the tractor doing it, just that was it. But probably more easier on your back than labour-wise.
Did you cut the grass with a mower?
Oh yes, it's more the old-fashioned mowing by on the tractor. I never seen the horse. I've seen it, but I never walked it.
Yeah, that was back in the 50s, wasn't it?
Oh, the tractors were. I remember looking at a tractor now for almost 5-year-old. Yes, I know nothing else much. I've seen a horse, but I've seen him walking across the street. That's the last time I seen a horse on our street.
And of course, one big difference that people would notice between nowadays and back then is that the absence of round baling back in the 60s, 70s, 60s even.
There wasn't much haymaking. There was only just maybe a field or two made at that time. It was mostly crops that grew the fed down with straw and the grass seed, and tied the grass seed, and you took the grass and it was thrashed, and you kept so much seed for the following year. And same with the oats, you kept so much seed, and same with the potatoes, and you sowed them all over again the following year. And that's the way it was done, tradition.
And I remember you told me before that there used to be a salesman that came to exchange eggs for goods.
The homemade shop man, that saved us. Nobody went to town them times. He had the most of your wants that they wanted.
And you could pay in money or eggs.
Mother had enough eggs, it helped to pay for the groceries.
And were any other animal products accepted as currency, or just eggs?
It was just mainly eggs. Just there was no other. He took stuff so he could exchange to another customer that wanted eggs. That's the way he worked. If he had eggs, he'd buy them out, and then he'd sell them on some man maybe that had no eggs.
How often did you go to town in the 60s?
Not too often. Maybe Christmas time would be a big time. They'd go to town, maybe do, and that was something on business. There was no shopping in town. That was a necessity, or in town or something you might get some. But on average, we're not bought in town much.
And you wouldn't have gone much as a child?
No. Christmas time, for all the time I went when Santa was knocking about.
Oh, did you have that back then?
Oh yes, he paraded around my town, and that was the start of Santa in my day, around the 60s. Before that, we didn't know much about Santa. Santa wasn't so much up in the cupboard. We talked about much.
So you would have spent most of your time working on the farm, and you quit school when you were 14, was that right?
Aye.
14.
I went in 66 when I was 14.
And if there was a good day, would you have gone to school, or would you have stayed at home and farmed?
I was one at home. I was doing maybe putting in grain or corn. I'd be kept at home to shine the corn to the fiddle.
Did you argue about it?
No.
Were you happy with it?
Oh yes. Didn't like school for you got too much of the chain across the hand and wasn't a bit nice. The old traditional school teachers weren't nice to talk to, and they weren't very pleasant.
Yeah, the school back then, it wouldn't have been a very alluring place to go to.
No. Yes, they were very smart and brains the point, made them too bad.
Yeah.
But you were a bit slow at all, you got a hammer. That was the way they beat the stuff into that time. There was no nicety about the teachers them times. The stick. bait it into you, and that wasn't the right way.
No.
No, you want to stay at home, you didn't want to fancy going. You went to school begrudgingly.
And would you say there's a lot of difference between the school children back then and the school children nowadays?
I want the children want to go to school now, you can't wait to go.
Ah, well, it depends on which one.
Oh, the small ones, they're eager to go.
Oh, yeah.
They're trained differently. They're looking forward for it. It's great fun going to school.
Do you think they respect the teachers as much as they did back then?
No, the youth, once they get up into our teenagers, they're no thought for the teacher. The thing is turned around. The lesson we take the stick to the teacher now. The other way around now.
Do you think that not going on to secondary school or college held you back in life?
Probably did in the long run. But then I've self-taught in engineering, like, so I made up for it in my own little way.
You've always been sort of an engineer by yourself
Always.
and doing tasks for other people as well.
Oh, yes. Oh, I wouldn't have done much in the 60s now.
Yeah.
But no one fixing things at home there. I broke down. You can fix it yourself, and that's it. It's just in the blood, this comes natural.
When it came to the animals, were they kept in a different way? Or was their sort of living arrangement different? Or what was different with the animals in the 60s?
I'm old-fashioned there. Time went out farm, the livestock all stayed up there in the yard and around the street. Well, you hadn't as many of them times. Before that, there wasn't much, like in the early 60s. Maybe 5 or 6 animals all around, roaming about and 3 or 4 cows in my early days. The cows didn't really go until about 63 or 64 they started to build up. People started to get more cows, so more money than the pigs and the old-fashioned farming. They were turned more to grass, and less ploughing after the mid-60s. The ploughing sort of stopped.
And would you have had a more of a diversity of animals, or would it, like nowadays people tend to have a lot of cows, or they don't have as a few pigs, a few cows, a few sheep?
A wee bit of everything that time. You hadn't too much then, but you had a bit of everything. So if one thing went wrong, you always turn to something else. But nowadays it's all in the one pot now.
All the eggs in one basket.
It's a burst or prosper. Waste God now. You had all the cows, they were down TB, actually wiped out for a while. You have no money coming into you if you stick to the one thing.
Would you prefer to be living back then and farming, or now?
Probably a nicer, quieter life, and life seems to be more gentle going about. It wasn't such a hustle. Less money done, but that's days now we're going to come back. No. It was a nice, easy enough life during the 60s. It might have been hard too, but still, you had lots of time to talk to your neighbours and friends, and there's more people to give you a hand, more help at home. Nowadays it's all down to one man. Or where there's 4 or 5 at home, one man has to do the same work now. Only has to be more mechanised to handle it. He's rush, and that's why there's more farm actions now. There's people's too much on that plate now. Rush to get the job done. And the weather's not helping there either. The weather's against it. Better weather than days. More sunshine.
Is there anything else you want to say about farming in the 60s you can think of? Anything unique
It was
about
a
it?
hard life, sure, but it was a pleasant life. When you look back on it, to the day's life.
Yeah, so that's your message.
It
It was harder, but it was better.
was a more relaxed life. You had more time to yourself. Once you'd done your chores in the morning there, you had plenty of time to go out and do things out in the field. All the little chores. It wasn't as heavy some. I know what it's different some or the other. People had less around them, and then less has.
People maybe want more nowadays, so they have to go and harder at it, and
More debts, and they get themselves into, they borrow more money, and then they get themselves into a hole. And
did anyone borrow money back in the day in the 60s?
No, you didn't pay for it on the spot. You done without it. That was it.
And it's probably better that way.
Aye.
No buy now, pay later.
No. You paid up front.
Yeah.
You didn't buy it, and that's it. There was no run to town to buy out fancy stuff you didn't want. It was necessities only.
And that's probably influenced you not to take on debts in your life, whereas someone born now, or a modern farmer, might be more inclined to get into debt.
Aye, for you know there's no other way. That's the banks are more persuasive now. We'll lend you money, get you into a debt and maybe never be able to pay it back if you're not lucky.
Would you trust a banker?
Someone, you'd be safer, never see them.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they're the ones that destroyed the country, wasn't it?
It was in 2000 mark, where is there now? In the 95 ones, the bankers were throwing out money like dust. Right?
Well, I hope we return to the 60s and it'd be better that way. All right, we'll leave it there.
Right out.